Using multiple SSH public keys. I have a personal account and a company account on Unfuddle. On Unfuddle, SSH keys can only be used on a single account, so I need to create a separate SSH key on my laptop for both accounts. I ran SSH keygen TRSA to generate two keys with different names. Personal is default name and company is company_RSA. The problem now is that it appears that my default key is used everywhere and I can't find out how to specify a key to use in Git for individual repos. So my question is, how do I specify an SSH key to use on a repo-to-repo basis? I set up my ssh_config ~/.ssh/config, but it still doesn't seem to work. Config. My Git repo config file for a repo on my company Unfuddle account looks like this. So I am not sure if there is something wrong with my SSH config or my Git config.
If you have an active SSH agent that has your id_RSA key loaded, then the problem is likely that SSH is offering that key first. Unfuddle probably accepts it for authentication, for example in SSHD, but rejects it for authorization to access the company repositories, for example in whatever internal software they use for authorization, possibly something akin to Gitolite. Perhaps there is a way to add your personal key to the company account. Multiple people are not sharing the same corp_RSA public and private key files, are they? The identitiesonly.ssh/config configuration keyword can be used to limit the keys that SSH offers to the remote SSHD to just those specified via identity file keywords, i.e. it will refuse to use any additional keys that happen to be loaded into an active SSH agent. Try these .ssh/config sections. Then, use git urls like these. If you want to take full advantage of the .ssh/config mechanism, you can supply your own custom hostname and change the default username. Then, use git urls like these.
Identity file and identitiesonly work well. What bothers me is having to remember to use different host names to connect to, and the fact that the forwarded agent connection still holds all keys, meaning that if the remote host is compromised, they can use any of my identities while I'm in. I've recently started using this URL. It's a wrapper around SSH, it keeps an entirely separate agent for each identity you define. Automatically shares agents across login sessions, nothing to do in your basher. Loads the agent and the corresponding keys on demand the first time you need them. Determines which agent to use either based on SSH command line, hostname and AMP, such, or your current working directory. This is particularly handy as I tend to work from different paths depending on what I am doing.
Here's a proper way if you want to use SSH agent. Explanation: if you have private key in your /.ssh directory, SSH agent won't be used. So we create public key under another name, so that SSH is forced to use SSH agent. This also helps if you don't have access to private keys, for example SSH agent forwarding.
Man SSH_config. Something like. And use personal_repo as host in your Git repo.